Hi, I'm Martijn Wilder. I'm the CEO of Pollination, which is a global climate change investment and advisory firm. We set the firm up about 4 years ago, and I co-founded that with a colleague of mine, Tony O'Sullivan, who's based here in London. Prior to being at Pollination, I spent 25 years as a lawyer, largely in the climate change, renewable energy space. I also, during that period, have had a number of other roles, such as being chair of our federal government's renewable energy agency, and I was on the board of our green investment bank called the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, and I'm currently just coming to the end of my 10-year term as the chair of WWF Australia. So Pollination tries to develop and innovate solutions to the climate challenges and the nature challenges that we face. We've set the firm up 4 years ago, and there's 3 parts to the firm. There's an advisory part, which provides clients and governments with advice on climate change and nature. There is a project development part, where we really try to do greenfields project development of large-scale projects that are really important to addressing climate change, whether that be a hydrogen project or a renewable energy project. And the final part to the business is really about taking third-party capital, managing those funds and investing those in the technologies and the other solutions that will help address the nature and climate crisis. I think in many ways what we're really trying to do is be quite different and see how those 3 parts of the business really work together. I think traditionally, if you're just an investor or just an advisor or just a project developer, you address things in one particular way. We believe that between those 3 areas there's a real synergy. So in some sense, the business model of Pollination was to try to bring different skill sets together to look at this massive global challenge that we have, and also to try to be really innovative. I think sometimes, in your day-to-day work, people fail to come up with ideas, to take a step back and really think about what is the challenge before us, what are some innovative solutions, what can we take from one part of the world and apply to another part of the world, what is missing in our thinking, and how do we actually really address these challenges in a way that is going to have a long-term, real positive solution. Firstly, I have FT on my iPhone, so I often will go into the iPhone app and I'll scan the FT and see what's going on, and then if there's a particular article, I'll go into that a bit deeper and read it. I would do that every day. I'll probably check it in the morning and sometimes in the evening, and then sometimes if in a meeting I'm a bit bored, I might have a look as well. As a general rule, I read that. I also get the must-readers every day. So in my email, I've got 1 or 2 areas of the FT where there's a specific story or something will come into my feed, and I'll read that as well. But one of the most pleasurable things I have is that living in Australia, my local newsagent every Saturday morning gets the FT delivered, the hard copy. And although I have it on my phone, there is nothing better than sitting at home on a Saturday morning with the hard copy of the pink FT, and my wife likes that How Do You Spend It, by the way, might I add, magazine, and read that. And so I think, even though I probably read it on the app, I still like to read the paper version as well on a Saturday morning. Well, one, I get the must read every day in my feed. I also look at the climate capital and sustainability areas, but I just like to read the paper more generally. So one of the things I have been looking a lot at, I guess, in the FT from a personal interest is what's going on from a geopolitical point of view. I think the FT has great coverage on that, and it gives me a different perspective. I subscribe on my phone to quite a few different news feeds, including 3 or 4 Australian papers, the New York Times, but then also the FT. I think you get a different perspective, and I think the FT gives me also not just a global perspective, but a European perspective that I would not get in the normal Australian papers. I think that's very important. Its coverage is also pretty in-depth of European events, geopolitics. So apart from just the areas that I'm particularly interested in, like the climate change areas, sustainability areas, I like to sort of do the broader interconnect across that. And also I think there are often very interesting articles for me around technology developments and what's going on in the field. There's a very good article on Northvolt looking at sodium battery production as opposed to lithium ion. For me, that's really interesting because, we are an investor. We look at different sort of investing trends and we look at different technology trends. I think the FT is very good at drawing out articles on what some of the big technology players are doing and how they're thinking. There's a great article about Toyota has been, I guess, a little bit behind in its battery manufacturing, what it's doing around auto batteries. Big article about a breakthrough with Toyota and what they were looking at. So I really enjoyed those sort of in-depth reviews that the FT does on major players in our sector. how those players are changing, discoveries that are being made, how technologies are changing as well. So I find that really interesting.